Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today's video is on the Amityville House.
The house, originally located at 112 Ocean Avenue, later changed to 108 Ocean Avenue in a failed attempt to deceive sightseers, was built in 1924 by John Moynihan. In the 1960s, it was bought by the Riley family and sold to the DeFeo family later in the decade. It was then bought by George and Kathleen Lutz in 1975, 1 year after the murders. Rumors have spread that years ago the property was an Indian burial ground. Another legend is that the land was an insane asylum for sick and dying Indians. Seth Purdy of the Amityville Historical Society says that none of that is true. He also says the water table is too high to support a graveyard. The property is on the bank of a river. For a long time, it's been said that a witch from Salem by the name of John Ketchum owned land right across the street. GhostHauntings.org did a lengthy investigation and learned that a John Ketchum did live nearby, but according to our findings, it's not the same John Ketchum that was well known during the Salem witch trial era. Rumors suggest that John Ketchum practiced witchcraft on that property, and the Red Room, located in the basement of the house, was somehow haunted by his spirits. But historians say that room was a plant room built for the Moynihans. The murders. The murders took place on November 13, 1974, shortly after 3 a.m. 24-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., commonly known as Butch, shot and killed his parents, Ronald and Louise, his two sisters, Dawn and Allison, and two brothers, John and Mark, with a .35 caliber rifle. All of the victims were asleep in their beds, and their bodies were discovered 15 hours later. Ronald DeFeo Sr. reportedly was a strict man with a very hot temper, and Ronald Jr., aka Butch, was said to be much worse and had issues with anger, drugs, and alcohol. His drugs of choice were heroin and LSD. Even though Butch tried to claim that he was innocent, eventually he confessed to the killings. Butch was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 25-life terms. He is imprisoned at Greenhouse State Prison in New York. The Lutz family's claim of haunting. In December 1975, George Lee Lutz, his wife Kathleen, and their offspring moved into the house. Immediately after moving in, the Lutz family alleged the house was haunted. They reported being awakened in the middle of the night by what sounded like a piece of marching band. Miss Lutz claims that while she looked in the mirror, she saw an extremely aged version of herself looking back at her. She also reported of being awakened during the night by an entity laying on top of her, leaving her paralyzed for several minutes, and on another occasion being levitated by some unknown force above her bed. The Lutz also reported green slime oozing from keyholes. One bedroom was always infested with flies, and looking out the bedroom window to see a pig floating in the air with bright red eyes. The Lutz also claimed that while sitting downstairs, they also heard footsteps coming from the upstairs bedrooms when no one was up there, and one incident of a face outside with glowing red eyes peering in the living room window at them. George threw an object at it, and it ran away squealing like a pig. Mr. Lutz then contacted Dr. Stephen Kaplan, said to be a well-respected Long Island parapsychologist, to visit the house. According to Lutz, Dr. Kaplan showed up at the house one day with 6 witches and a TV news crew. Furious by this, Mr. Lutz kicked them off his property and didn't let them in the house. George Lutz then contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, founders of the New England Society for Psychic Research. Ironically, accompanying the Warrens were a TV news anchor, a few clairvoyants, and investigators from Duke University. Lorraine says that much of the furniture in the house was the same furniture from the DeFeo murders. Lorraine sat on the bed in the master bedroom, only the mattress had been replaced since the murders, and was overcome by what she describes as a very evil demonic force. She then went to daughter Missy's room, same mattress and furniture. Mr. Lutz allegedly allowed his children to sleep on the DeFeo children's deathbeds. Lorraine says the evil was so overwhelming that she became weak, disoriented, and could hardly stay conscious while leaving. The skeptics, neighbors, and townspeople. Butch DeFeo's lawyer William Weber claims that he and George Lutz created all of the paranormal allegations one night after a few bottles of wine. George Lutz claims that is false and that Weber is saying that because he wanted to write a book about the hauntings and make money, but was beaten to it by Jay Anderson, The Amityville Horror by Jay Anderson. The local newspaper printed a story claiming that the Lutz admitted whole story was a hoax. The story also claims that George and Kathleen Lutz even admitted that they conspired the hoax out of fascination of the famous movie The Exorcist. Oddly, though, it turns out that the reporter that wrote that article was the police chief's son. Some say they printed that erroneous story in an attempt to get rid of vandals and sightseers. Dr. Stephen Kaplan, the parapsychologist Lutz kicked off his property, alleges it was all a hoax and that Lutz's paranormal claims are the result of him reading many books about demonic possession. Ed and Lorraine Warren, New England Society for Psychic Research, claim that Kaplan is bitter for getting kicked off the property and that he has no degree of any kind from any educational institution to prove he's actually a doctor. George Lutz insists that there were entities in the house and it was haunted, but nothing at all like the movie portrays, the Amityville Horror of 1979. In 2005, Lutz filed a libel suit against Dimension Films and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the makers of the 2005 remake, claiming that he was misrepresented in the movie and defamation of character. In the 7 hours that I spent researching the story, I did not find any documentation that anyone from the Lutz family ever admitted that the whole thing was a hoax. In fact, I even saw documentation that George and Kathleen took a polygraph test and passed. The occupants of the house at 108 Ocean Avenue, formerly 112, of today, are very private and want to be left alone. They resent people driving by to gawk at the most famous haunted house in American history. The townspeople feel the same way, and the police patrol the street regularly to prevent such activity. Is the house still haunted? The new occupants refuse to comment. Some people wonder how Butch DeFeo was able to fire 9 gunshots in the murder spree without waking up the rest of the family, allowing them to flee. And why didn't the neighbors hear it, especially since the neighboring houses are only 40 feet away? Lorraine Warren calls it phantomania, a paralyzing condition enhanced by either fear or spirits. Incidentally, during the research of this story, I learned that George Lee Lutz passed away of natural causes on May 8, 2006 at the age of 59. So upon doing further research, I come across another article, and it says, The Real Amityville Horror, Chilling Facts About the Crime and Haunted House. 5 people were murdered at the Long Island residence in 1974, and frightening tales about the home continue to spook. 30 miles outside of New York City, nestled in the Long Island town of Amityville, stands the house forever linked to the Amityville horror phenomenon. On November 13, 1974, the estate was a scene of mass murder. Using a .35 Marlin rifle, 23-year-old Ronald J. DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family while they were asleep, which included his parents and 4 siblings. 13 months later, the Lutz family purchased the home at a drastically reduced price of $80,000 due to the murders, but only lasted 28 days before leaving it. Their spine-tingling tales of paranormal activity are what propelled the legend of the Amityville Horror and spawned a torrent of books, documentaries, and films. The Lutz family experienced supernormal activity. Stepfather George Lutz had a history of dabbling in the occult. George was said to wake up at 3:15 a.m. every morning, which was around the time Ron carried out his murders. The Lutz family claimed to smell strange odors, see green slime oozing out of the walls and keyholes, and experience cold spots in certain areas of the house. When a priest came to bless the house, he allegedly heard a voice scream out, "Get out!" He told the Lutzes to never sleep in that particular room in the house. Other paranormal activity. A nearby garage door opening and closing, an invisible spirit knocking a knife down in the kitchen, a pig-like creature with red eyes staring down at George and his son Daniel from a window. George waking up to his wife Kathy levitating off their bed, sons Daniel and Christopher also levitating together in their beds. Many question the validity of the Lutz's story. After telling their story, George and Kathy took a lie detector test to prove their innocence. They passed. The couple was bogged down in legal and financial issues, which prompted skeptics to believe they had the motive to create a fantastical story to sell to the public. The Lutz's former lawyer, William Weber, who fell out with them over money issues, came out in 1979 claiming the three of them came up with the horror story over many bottles of wine. Son Daniel, who lives a quiet life in Queens, New York, as a stonemason, claims the house ruined his life and that he continues to have nightmares to this day. Murderer Ron, who at the time the story was wrote anyways, was still alive and serving 6 25-year life sentences at a New York correctional facility, claimed he heard voices urging him to kill his family. He has since changed his story multiple times. The Amityville House still stands, with a new address. The Amityville House officially sold in February 2017 to an undisclosed owner for $605,000, which was $200,000 less than the original asking price. It had been previously owned by 4 other families since the murders, one of which had the address changed to 108 Ocean Avenue. The house originally stood at 112 Ocean Avenue.
Thank you for watching today's video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. What paranormal or crime-related mystery would you like to see next? I hope you all have a great day.
Man named Fred Grabbe. And what horrific thing he did to end up in a story that I am telling you guys. So, let's get into it. The Grabbe family was wealthy by small-town standards. They were easily one of the richest families in Marshall, Illinois, a tiny farming town just 10 miles west of the Indiana border. Most of their wealth came from Charlotte Grabbe's inheritance from her parents. Both Charlotte and her husband Fred were extremely hard workers who spent long hours farming their soybean and corn fields, but their life together was far from perfect. The couple had 2 children, Jeff and Jenny, who usually took Charlotte's side when there were problems between the parents. Fred and Charlotte had been married for 23 years, filled with violence. So much so that they had divorced once and remarried. Why do people do that? If you're going to get divorced, you got divorced for a reason, okay? It's not like you just fell out of love. No, there's a reason why you can't live your life with this person no more, okay? I hear so many times people are like, oh, they got divorced and they got remarried just to get re-divorced. And I'm like, that's a lot of fucking extra shit you shouldn't have had done. If you want to be with somebody, especially if you've already married them once before, don't remarry them. Just be together, right? You're just going to save a lot of time and headache when you get sick of each other again anyways. So, back to the story, sorry. But the second marriage looked to be headed toward divorce as well, like I said. Fred was a huge man standing at 6'4", while Charlotte was petite. During their heated arguments, Fred had no problem using his fists on his tiny wife or his son Jeff. Things had gotten so bad that Charlotte had instructed Jeff and Jenny to come look for her if she hadn't returned to the house by the end of each workday. At 42 years old, Fred was also a serial philanderer. I don't know what the fuck that is. Philanderer? I don't know what that is. And had a fascination with younger women, usually having a few girlfriends on the side at any given time. In 1981, Fred was dating a 24-year-old, curly-haired, blonde bartender named Vicki McAllister. After learning of Fred's latest affair, Charlotte was devastated and filed for divorce. Fred moved out of the family home into a small cabin on the edge of the family's property. Jeff and his wife then moved into the main family house with Charlotte. It wasn't long after Fred moved into the cabin that Charlotte filed battery charges against him. He had assaulted her when she went to the cabin to take some furniture back to the main house.
Just after sundown on July 21st, 1981, Charlotte had not returned to the house after work, and Jeff and Jenny knew something was wrong. She had gone out to the soybean field on her tractor, but when they went looking for her, they found the tractor parked inside a machine shed. Her lunchbox was still resting on the front tire. Jenny immediately returned home and reported her mother missing to the Clark County Sheriff. When questioned by the sheriff, Fred admitted they had quarreled, but said that the last time he saw her, she was driving her car toward the interstate highway. Of course he would. Of course he would. To throw them off, right? Don't look at me. Go look at the highway over there. Days later, Charlotte's car was found across the state border in Terre Haute, Indiana, just 16 miles away. Police searched her vehicle and found no blood or signs of foul play, but beneath the seat was a loaded handgun. Contrary to Fred's story, a friend of Charlotte's came forward and told the sheriff she saw Fred driving his truck toward Terre Haute with someone following in Charlotte's car. Someone other than Charlotte. There we go. Just setting it all up. The people that fucking know her are going to know that's not Charlotte, obviously. You know what I'm saying? They're going to report that shit. Ugh. I can't. The witness claimed the person driving Charlotte's car was a young blonde woman with curly hair. Sounds like that bartender he had an affair with, right? Investigators found that Charlotte kept a safe deposit box at the local bank. Inside the box, they found notes that she had placed there just 10 days before she went missing. Sounds like she knew something was fucking coming, dude. In those notes, she wrote that she believed Fred had been stealing farm equipment, and she had doubts that she would live through the divorce. In addition, she wrote that she was afraid of Fred and his business partner, Dale Kessler. The sheriff questioned Dale Kessler, who claimed Fred had been with him on the evening Charlotte went missing. Of course his friend's gonna fucking cover for him until they find fucking proof of something. Ugh, speculation, At Jeff and Jenny's request, the sheriff brought Fred and Vicki Allister before a grand jury, but both refused to talk, invoking their Fifth Amendment rights. Jenny even asked her father to take a lie detector test to prove he didn't kill her mother, but he refused. Of course he refused. Oh my god, dude. Ugh. Charlotte's case went cold for 3 years despite Jenny and her husband offering a $1,000 reward for information. They later raised it to $10,000, then again to $25,000, but still, no one came forward. Eventually, Jenny hired a private investigator, Charles Pearson. Pearson decided to follow the clue of the curly-haired blonde driving Charlotte's car. Smart. Because obviously the police are incompetent at this point, right? Just saying. Clearly, Pearson believed the woman driving the vehicle was Vicki McAllister, and he wanted to talk to her. Fred and Vicki had since broken up, and she was now living in West Terre Haute, Indiana. Pearson knew that Vicki liked to do two things: drink beer and play pool. He started hanging out in bars in the area and eventually met her, and they became friendly. When Pearson finally admitted who he was and why he had befriended her, she couldn't help but spill the beans. He said the information poured out of her like there was something she desperately needed to get off of her chest. She had been holding a secret inside, and it was eating her alive. Which could be why she was drinking so much. She was trying to cover that shit up, right? She was more than willing to come clean. McAllister admitted to Pearson that she was the one driving Charlotte's car that day. Big fucking surprise. But that was just the beginning. Next, she described the gruesome details of what happened that night and the following day. Vicki McAllister's story made her physically ill each time she told it. Nevertheless, the story would eventually be told to authorities and, later, to two juries. McAllister recalled that she and Fred Grabbe were in the machine shed that day to get some 55-gallon metal barrels for farm work. As they were loading the barrels into his truck, they heard Charlotte's tractor. Fred told Vicki to hide behind another tractor inside the shed. Fred went outside the shed to meet Charlotte, where they had a very heated argument. The argument escalated as they came back inside the shed. but eventually Fred couldn't control his rage and began strangling her. Using his bare hands, he choked her until she was almost unconscious. He then released his grip to let her regain consciousness, and then choked her again. He eventually repeated this over and over again until he strangled his wife to death. Once Charlotte was dead, he sodomized her lifeless body while Vicky watched. Are you serious? Dude, no wonder she was, man, on either. Oh my God, dude, that's horrible. That is absolutely horrible. That poor, I have nothing. I have nothing. That literally made me speechless. Fred then grabbed a grease gun from the shed and he filled all of Charlotte's orifices with grease. It got worse. It got worse, guys. It got worse. He crumpled her body into one of the 55-gallon barrels and loaded the barrel into the back of his pickup truck. Grabbe instructed Vicky to drive Charlotte's green Ford LTD that was parked outside and follow him as he drove his truck across the state line into Indiana. That night, they dumped Charlotte's car outside a bar in Terre Haute and drove back to Grabbe's farm, then parked on the bank of the Wabash River. Grabbe took the barrel out of his truck and placed it near a maple tree, where he poured diesel fuel into the barrel until it covered Charlotte's body. He then lit it on fire. Fred and Vicky sat on the riverbank while the barrel burned. The diesel fuel and the grease inside her body burned slowly all night long. It just gets worse, guys. The following morning, they heard the search party approaching, so they put out the fire and loaded the drum back onto Fred's truck, with Charlotte's charred body still inside. They then headed back to Vicky's home. At sunset that night, they returned to the river, put the barrel in the same spot, and set it ablaze again. Again, it burned all night. In the morning, Fred rolled the barrel into the river. The only body part remaining was Charlotte's skull. He grabbed the skull, turned to Vicky, said, "This will make good fish bait," and then threw it into the river. This guy is sick, guys. This guy is sick. Oh my God. Vicky's confession helped, but it simply wasn't enough. Prosecutors needed some sort of physical evidence to charge Fred Grabbe. With no body, barrel, or murder weapon, investigators needed something besides Vicky McAllister's word against Fred's. Officially, Charlotte's case was still just a missing person. The new sheriff in Clark County, Dan Crumrun, was curious if the maple tree, which still stood above the burn site, could somehow be used. Crumrun asked the University of Illinois for help, and they sent a plant biologist, Eugene Heimlich, and an organic chemist, Donald Dickerson. During the natural cycle of a tree's life, the seasons will cause a tree to grow in the spring and summer, then go dormant in the winter. This process each year creates the familiar ring in the trunk and branches of every tree. A ring in the tree's branch will show that year's growth. Diesel fuel is highly toxic to a tree. If it doesn't kill it, then it will, at the very least, hamper its growth. Heimlich and Dickerson took samples from the branches of the maple tree. Their findings concluded that 3 rings deep, meaning 3 years ago, the tree's growth was much thinner. The tree had gone through some sort of stress the summer that Charlotte had gone missing. They then shredded the samples into sawdust, which Dickerson analyzed using a gas chromatograph. Well, close enough. Mass spectrometer. Whatever. A mass spectrometer is a device that identifies the components of a sample, even in very tiny amounts. In their analysis, they found the presence of hydrocarbons found in diesel products. There were a total of 5 branches tested. The 2 branches located on the side of the tree that the barrel was on showed the hydrocarbons. The other 3 on the opposite side did not. This forensic evidence was enough to convict Fred Grabbe. One of the prosecutors in the trial was
Robert Egan of Chicago. Egan had been the prosecutor for the trial of John Wayne Gacy, a serial killer convicted for the murders of 33 young men in 1980. Fred Grabbe was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, the story was far from over. During the trial, Fred had the support of his latest girlfriend, Barbara Graham, a twice-divorced mother of 3 from a nearby town. Fred had purchased her a mink coat that she wore in the courthouse during the trial to torment the family members. A few weeks after Grabbe's conviction, he was being held in the Clark County Jail when Barbara Graham attempted to break him out. She showed up at the jail and told Deputy Sheriff Mike Paulson that she wanted to give Fred a love note. When Paulson opened the door, she fired 5 shots, one hitting the deputy in the leg. She hovered over him and said, "Don't make me kill you." Graham's attempt, however, was unsuccessful. She was sentenced to 16 years in prison for that crime. The judge that sentenced Grabbe to prison was convinced that Fred had somehow planned the breakout attempt from behind bars. Just 2 months later, with Fred still in prison, both the Grabbe home and the nearby home belonging to Fred's son Jeff burned to the ground. Fire marshals determined that both fires were intentionally set. Investigators suspected that Fred had something to do with it from prison, but he was already serving a life sentence. They had no way to prove his involvement. During Fred's imprisonment, his lawyers filed an appeal of his verdict and got his first conviction overturned on a technicality. By this time, Vicki McAllister was living another life under another name, but returned to Clark County to testify against Fred again. Just a month before the second trial, Fred's son Jeff, who had testified at his first trial, vanished. He was on a business trip in California when all his family members lost contact with him. By the time of the trial date, Jeff was nowhere to be found. The judge allowed his wife Cindy to testify in his absence. Despite lacking Jeff's testimony, Fred was once again convicted a second time and sentenced to 75 years in prison. 1 month after the trial, Jeff's body was found floating in the water at Seal Beach in California. 3 bullet holes riddled his body, and an anchor was tied around him to keep the body down. To this day, Fred denies having anything to do with his son's murder. Vicki McAllister received the $25,000 reward that Jenny and her husband had offered, and she relocated under yet another assumed name. She still lives in fear that Fred will somehow find her. In June 2022, 83-year-old Fred Grabbe was released on parole. He served only 37 years of his sentence. And yet another strange twist to this family story. Years later in 2014, Fred's grandson, Adam Everett Livix, was indicted on weapons and immigration charges in Netanya, Israel. He was suspected of impersonating a Navy SEAL and plotting bombing attacks on the Dome of the Rock, an iconic mosaic in Israel. Livix was diagnosed as being psychotic and unfit to stand trial. He was held in a mental institution in Israel for a year before he was released back to the U.S., where he faced charges of stealing farm equipment. And on that note, guys, that's the end of the story. So, what do you guys think? Like, this guy's sick. I've heard some stories, right? We know about, like, the most heard of serial killers, but this guy, and honestly, he's not a serial killer because he only killed his, well, I guarantee he had something to do with that other one too. So there's that, you know. Anyways, I would like to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about Fred Grabbe? Have you heard of him before? I've not. So anyways, I hope you guys liked today's video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching, subscribing, and liking my videos. Until the next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Video. And I'm just going to cut through the chase because I did a lot of talking in the last video, and I'm trying not to do that. because it keeps it short. And that's what we like, right? Short videos. Yes. So this one I'd actually covered a video on before, but this is concentrating on a certain aspect of that video. So I figured I'd just throw it in there anyways. It's fun. It's kind of good to put all the little pieces together, I guess. I don't know. We'll find out. I have no idea what's about to happen. I just know what the title of the video is. So today's video is the Toolbox serial killer's last victim. So I did a video on the Toolbox killer. Can't talk. Killer or killers, because he had, conspirators with him or whatever you want to call them. Fucking, I don't know, partners in crime on a whole different level. So anyways, let's get into it. The Toolbox killers had met in California Men's Colony Prison in 1977, which I know. There, the two realized that they shared a common interest in sexual violence. They would start their stalking of prey in February of 1979, building up to their first victim in June, Lucinda Lynn Schaefer. I think I'm gonna link my video of the Toolbox Killers to this video, just because it's kind of good to keep the pieces together. It's not a good story, but it's, hey, you seen one, you might as well watch the other video too, right? Just saying, in case you don't know who they are. They cooled off for 2 weeks before they grabbed Andrea Joy Hall while she was hitchhiking the Pacific Coast Highway. Next would be Jackie Doris Gilliam and Jacqueline Leah Lamp. I think I fucked that up last time too. The Toolbox killers would find them sitting on a bus stop bench in Hermosa Beach. Hermosa. On October 31st, 1979, the Toolbox killers would abduct 16-year-old Shirley Lynette Ledford. That's a big part of that story too. Shirley had been at a Halloween party in the Sunland Tujunga area of Los Angeles. She had planned on hitchhiking home while standing outside of a gas station. Two men in a van pulled up. Shirley recognized the one, Lawrence Bittaker. He was a regular at the restaurant she worked at as a waitress. The other man was Roy Norris, who offered her marijuana after getting in the van, but she refused. Bittaker was driving and took them to a secluded street. Before Shirley knew what was happening, Norris pulled a knife and bound her with construction tape, then shoved a gag in her mouth. Norris then got behind the wheel and drove around the area while Bittaker tortured Shirley for over an hour. First, Bittaker started slapping and mocking Shirley, followed by beating her with his fist. While he was beating her, he kept screaming at her, "Say something." I hope somebody does that shit to him in prison. I hope somebody beats him and says, "Say something." Don't even make a peep, man. It's just going to cause more beatdown by several people. But anyways, if she cried in response to the pain, he would yell, "Scream louder." Because he's a piece of shit. "What's the matter? Don't you like to scream?" Shirley was crying and begging for Bittaker to stop. "No, don't touch me." Her pleas only got Bittaker more excited, where he continued to order her to scream louder. He grabbed a hammer and started hitting her, between bouts of punching her breast with his fist. Yeah, he was a sick fucker, guys. Ugh. Bittaker raped and sodomized her repeatedly and used pliers on her genitals to inflict even more pain. Like I said, he's a sick fucking piece of shit, guys. It's gonna get worse. In the recording that Bittaker and Norris made, you can hear the sound of the tools You can hear the sound of the tools behind, put in, and brought out of the toolbox while Shirley begs for it to stop. And Norris, he said how he could hear the screams as he continued to drive around, waiting for his fucking turn. Norris goes into the back of the van and starts taunting Shirley to scream again. Go ahead and scream, or I'll make you scream. Shirley, desperate for her pain to end, begs, I'll scream if you stop hitting me. Norris encouraged her to continue until he told her to stop. The next sound that can be heard on the recording is Norris grabbing the sledgehammer from the toolbox, followed by Shirley, oh no. He struck her in the elbow. She cries out that he broke her elbow. Don't hit me again. Then you can hear her yell, no. Norris then hits her in the elbow 25 times in a row before he asks, what are you sniveling about? You know, they should do some kind of torture to pieces of shit like this when they're in prison. I really hope somebody knows what the fuck these guys did, and I really hope they're being fucked with hard in prison. Because I remember what these guys look like, and they look like little fucking, I don't know, scrawny guys that could definitely get beat up by some big guys in jail. Just saying. I really hope that's what's happening. I hope they are somebody's bitch in jail. Little scrawny pieces of shit anyways. It's been nearly 2 hours since Shirley was standing in front of that gas station looking for a ride home. And now her torturers seem to be done with her. Norris takes a wire coat hanger and wraps it around her neck, tightening it with pliers. Norris would say later that Shirley hardly responded to the strangulation, but she did die with her eyes wide open. Bit Taker decided they should dump her body in someone's yard so they could enjoy the press's reaction to their work. They found a house in Sunland and discarded her in a bed of ivy on the front lawn. A jogger out the next morning would spot her body. An autopsy would show the violent sexual assaults she suffered, along with the multiple blunt force trauma. Her whole body bore the marks of her attack. She had trauma to the face, head, breast, and her left elbow had multiple fractures. Her genitalia and rectum were torn. She had a puncture wound to her hand, and one finger had been slashed. Eventually, the pair would be arrested, and their recordings would be found. Bit Taker would take the stance that the tape showed a consensual threesome having fun. Like I said, he's a fucking piece of shit, guys. Norris seemed to revel in the reliving of the crimes by listening to the recordings. He had this to say. We've all heard women scream in horror films. Still, we know that no one is really screaming. Why? Simply because an actress can't produce some sounds that convince us that something vile and heinous is happening. If you ever heard that tape, there is just no possible way that you'd not begin crying and trembling. I doubt you could listen to more than a full 60 seconds of it. Norris pleaded Roy Norris pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, 2 counts of rape, and 1 count of robbery on March 18, 1980. He might have pleaded guilty. Oh, I can't talk, and I keep wanting to read that the wrong word, guys. But it was just for a reduced sentence. He felt no remorse. A parole officer who spoke with him said Norris never exhibited any remorse or compassion about his brutal acts towards the victims. The defendant appears compulsive in his need to inflict pain and torture upon women. He testified that Norris can realistically be regarded as an extreme sociopath whose depraved pattern of behavior is beyond rehabilitation. Roy Norris was sentenced to 45 years to life imprisonment and would be first eligible for parole in 2010. He was denied parole. I hope he is somebody's bitch in jail. Lawrence Bittaker went to trial for 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, 5 charges of kidnapping, 9 charges of rape, 2 charges of forcible oral copulation, 1 charge of sodomy, and 3 charges of unlawful possession of a firearm. Bittaker was found guilty on all accounts. After deliberation, Lawrence Bittaker was given the death sentence for the 5 counts of murder. Both killers are still locked up in the state of California, and hopefully, for women everywhere, that's where the 2 of them will stay. Yeah, fuck both them. Piece of shit. Anyways, that was another horrific video, guys. It was pretty fucking detailed. I think it was more detailed this time than it was when I did my other video. But if you guys like this horrific story, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And I hope you guys have a great day. What's the matter, Zeusy? I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. It is going to be another Halloween series video. I am recording in bulk to try to get this shit done. You may or may not hear my cat Zeus. We call her Zeusy because I didn't know she was a girl when I got her and I named her Zeus. So I call her Zeusy. Had to put a girl twist on it. So you guys may or may not hear her because she's down here with me. She actually ended the last video with her little mews. Hi, Zeusy. Zeusy! Anyways, let's get into it. Definitely something to break this horrific cycle, because doing like one video at a time wasn't horrible, but now I'm doing like few videos, and this shit's really wearing me down, guys. Some pretty fucking horrific shit going on in these videos. So, yes, I'm gonna pet my little kitty cat. Yes, he's my baby. Yes. Yes. Alright, so today's video is Killing for the Thrill of It. Oh, and it happened in the year I was born. April 22nd, 1983. Investigators dug up property owned by Richard Bagenwald's mother in Staten Island. 2 bodies would be found. One was of 17-year-old Maria Kyalela, and I botched it, who had disappeared on Halloween night 1982. Halloween 1982. Maria Kyalela had asked her father for some money around 6:30 p.m. and said she would be back in a little while. She left wearing her white fur jacket, beige slacks, a denim vest, and tinted glasses. Around 12:20 that night, she was spotted walking towards her house by a Point Pleasant patrolman. He had been answering a call at the time and came back less than 10 minutes later to give her a ride home, but she was gone. Prosecutor Alexander D. Lehler, I'm sure I botched his name too. It is believed that Richard Bagenwald was on Route 88 that fateful evening when Maria met her death. There is no motive, in my opinion, for this senseless killing, other than that which I attributed to the other killing of Anna Alsawicz, Lehler said at a press conference. That of wanting to see someone die. Medical examiner Dr. Elliot Gross positively identified Maria's body. He used dental charts to make the ID. An examination of the body revealed 2 bullets from the victim's head. They were sent back for ballistic testing to match them to the other victims and guns owned by Bagenwald. Maria's cause of death was gunshot wounds to the head. After she was killed, her body was cut into 3 large sections and placed in trash bags before being buried. What wasn't in the bags were Maria's clothes and personal effects. It's unknown if the killer disposed of them separately or kept them as trophies. serial killer was allowed to kill. Besides these two bodies that police have uncovered, Wald killed at least 3 victims. But the question I have is, why was he even allowed back on the streets to kill again? This happens a lot. This isn't the only story where... Did you guys watch it? I told you guys to go watch that Jeffrey Dahmer that series. It was fucking horrific. How many times did he go to jail, guys? I lost count. But every time he got out, he'd kill somebody else. He'd kill a few people, actually, before he got picked up for some bullshit again. So, it happens all the time. Ted Bundy. God, guys, I mean, a lot of these fucking killers get caught and then released because they don't have enough evidence. They have fucking evidence. They're fucking bullshit. Like, you can tell by looking at this guy that there's something fucking wrong with him. Come on now. So anyways, because Richard Wald had already killed in the past, been caught and found guilty. In 1957, he was convicted of murder and robbery and placed in prison. But after only 17 years, he was paroled and turned loose on the streets of New Jersey to start attacking and killing again. His juvenile files show that Wald had learned to drink and gamble by the age of 8. Don't be showing my daughter any ideas, dude. She's 7. She's very impressionable right now. By the age of 9, he had been admitted to Bellevue Hospital, where he underwent electroshock therapy. After this therapy, he was placed in a state-run boarding school for troubled boys. During visits home to his mother on Staten Island, he would steal from her and cause trouble. Once at her house, he set himself on fire. If that's not a cry for attention, I don't know what is. He was only 11 at the time. At the age of 16, Wald was released from the boys' school and sent home to attend high school. I think I've said his name like 5 different ways. I don't know. I'm just saying some name. I could call him B, but whatever. I'm trying. That only lasted for 2 weeks. Then he took off to Nashville, Tennessee. There he spent 2 years getting in and out of trouble. Finally, he stole a car and drove it to Kentucky, where federal agents caught him. He was charged with transporting a stolen car across state lines. He served his time, but eventually returned to Staten Island and his mother. Wald's previous federal sentence didn't seem to scare him away from stealing cars, as he stole another one and drove it into New Jersey. Wald, along with an accomplice, robbed a grocery store, killing the owner. But we already know that he had been released after only 17 years. They said it was for good behavior. Maybe he was a model prisoner, but that's when he was under round-the-clock supervision. As soon as he was released, he went back to his old ways, and now he had a taste for killing. Before he started killing young women, Wald was pulled in on some rape charges, but they always fell apart. He now got married and made a new friend named Darren Fitzgerald, and this seemed to be the key to him starting to kill again. I don't think I said his name right either. I think it's Darren. I think it's just a different way to spell Darren. And this seemed to be the key to him starting to kill again. Some people just like working with a partner, it seems. Maria Chiella would only be one of the victims Wald and his new friend would kill. More victims. Virginia Clayton was abducted on September 8, 1982. Her body would be found buried close to the body of John Petrone. He was a police informant that met an untimely death in June of 1978 by Wald. Deborah Osborne would be killed on April 8, 1982. Hey, September 8th. April 8th. Oh, so that's earlier in the year. Okay. I was like, oh, there's a lot of 8s there. Is there like a significance about that? Probably not. She would be buried on top of Maria's body at Wald's mother's home. Oh, he used his mom as a scapegoat, guys. Oh, he's like, oh, they're going to find these bodies in my mom's yard and they're going to think she fucking did it. What a piece of shit. Anna. Oslowich was killed on August 28, 1982. Her body would be left dumped at a Burger King in Ocean Township, New Jersey. I mean, whoever found that fucking body there probably won't eat Burger King no more. Surprised they didn't get bad rep for that shit. Like, oh, if you eat at Burger King, you're gonna end up like this poor girl that got murdered. You know how fucked up everything is now. So anyways, William Ward, a drug dealer, was killed by Bagenwald in his home in Asbury Park in September 1982. Betsy Bacon disappeared on November... I like her fucking name, dude. Oh, let me just say that before I get all up into this fucking story. Betsy Bacon, I like your name. I'm really sorry what happened to you. But holy fuck, you have the coolest name. Just saying. Betsy Bacon disappeared on November 20th, 1982. Her body has never been recovered, but police have strong suspicions that she was another victim of Bagenwald's. Finally, in 1983, Richard Bagenwald was taken off the streets for good. He was given the death sentence for 4 murders. Later, they would be commuted to life in prison. He died on March 10, 2008. Oh, I didn't even do it good. My sleep got in the way. Damn. No one would have to fall victim to this thrill killer again. Wait, what happened to his accomplice? That was just that guy. What about his fucking buddy that helped him kill a couple people too? Just saying. They didn't get him too? Poor Betsy Bacon. I liked her name. And that is the end of another video, guys. We are doing really, really, really fucking good. I think I've just uploaded well, actually I did. I uploaded like 3 videos in the last 2 days. You guys won't see it because I'm not premiering them no more. They're just going to show up. There's too much work to that. And then I get the notification for it and I don't like that. So, anyways, what did you guys think of this story? It's pretty fucking horrific too. I liked Betsy Bacon's name. Fucking learned that shit. I've never heard of this guy before. He's a piece of shit. I wish he would have suffered, and he died in prison without suffering. Life's not fair. Anyways, if you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Please don't let these videos, make you leave my channel because you think this is all I'm going to do. I'm only doing this for Halloween. I cannot wait to get back into my little paranormal ghost trip I've been on. I am fiending for that, but I'm trying to get through these, and I need to go get some footage for the next couple videos I'm going to do. And then it's only through October, guys. Just stay with me through these horrific stories for the month of October. We're going to go right back to ghost videos. Paranormal, my little paranormal ghost trip I've been on. Anyways, and I don't know, did I already do my outro? I can't remember. Anyways, let's do it again. Hey, if you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you guys watching these with me because I don't have to listen to these horrific stories by myself. So, guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.